Welcome back, my students, to a brand new episode of Comic Class. And today's Let's Try to be going over the Amazing Spider-Man issue 43, Rhino on the Rampage. This is the return of the Rhino and should, I believe, complete the whole Rhino winning John Jameson storyline. And yeah, this should be really interesting, a very good read. So without further ado, let's jump right into today's story. Let's go. So this story basically starts off with the Rhino basically escaping from the scientists. Again, the government, like the police, basically are using guns to try to stop the Rhino. It just isn't working, and the Rhino is bulletproof. So he basically is able to escape them, and yeah, he's going to New York City to basically get John Jameson, it seems. So, and to defeat Spider-Man. So we get to see that Betty Brant basically goes to talk to J. Jonah Jameson, and it seems like she's going to have her job back. And it's really cool that, that's going to be a theme. As well as it seems that Ned basically has proposed to Betty, and now they're engaged. So they're going to be getting married. So that's really cool. Now we jump to Peter, and we just see him interacting with Mary Jane for the first time, over the last issue when they had first met. So now we get the interaction between two, and it's really interesting. I did have a problem with Peter in this issue, with this interaction, because it does make him look makes him look a lot shallow, because it seems like he only likes Mary Jane because she looks good. Of course, this is fits in this interaction because it starts like that, but then he starts learning more about her, and he starts really enjoying her type of vibe, being like a party girl, type person that wants to be out there in the action, and he thinks this could be something good for him, being the type of person he is, and being Spider-Man, but just realized there's going to be some problems with keeping his identity a secret from her, so that's really crazy. But they basically see the Rhino on the news that he's in New York City, causing disruption basically, and Peter and Mary Jane basically have the idea to go out and try to see if they can see Spider-Man or the Rhino basically. So that's really good for Peter. Gives them a chance to go and change into Spider-Man and fight against the Rhino and put him in jail again basically, or put him to where he's going to go to jail. We also get to see Daredevil in this issue, which is really cool, and it seems like he has interaction with his cast of characters about, I guess his friend was going to be the lawyer for the Rhino in his case, and now this is going to make it even harder for him to fight for his case. So that was really interesting to see other characters from the Marvel Universe in this issue having their own struggles because of the stuff that's going on with Spider-Man's story. So that was really cool to see, and really makes it feel like a shared universe. So yeah, so now we get to learn the Rhino's actual origin. It's really interesting that most of the Stan Lee Steve Ditko era basically gave the origin in their first issues that they debuted in, but in the John Romita senior era, it seems like this is going to be different in that this is the second time we've seen the Rhino, or third time we've seen the Rhino, and now we're finally getting his backstory. And his backstory is basically that he was just some type of thug that basically was experimented on by, I think they're Russians, and they give him this suit. I think it's like titanium or something. They say that it gives him the strength of a rhinoceros. We know that his strength is way more stronger than a regular rhinoceros, but this is, I guess, just the way that they tried to give him a sense of how strong he could be, or should be. And yeah, he was basically crazy, and once he obtained this power, this suit, he basically just went rogue and said that he didn't have to listen to anyone, that he's too strong, basically. He says, I'm too strong to take orders from any man. And, that's crazy. So, eventually, Spider-Man and Mary Jane go to this place, and he tells her that he's going to try getting pictures, because that's his job, of getting pictures of Spider-Man, having these, action battles with his foes. Those get the most money for J. Jonah Jameson. So Peter makes his way out to try to go get pictures, and he basically changes to his Spider-Man outfit, and he goes off and he fights against the Rhino. It's really cool. I really did enjoy this panel, Mary Jane basically saying to look, at Spider-Man. It's really cool. And yeah, I just thought it was really well drawn. So we get the battle between Spider-Man and the Rhino, and he does the same move he did in their first battle, where he slams the Rhino's head into the ground. But this doesn't work, which kind of, proves a little bit what I was saying in that issue, that I don't think that was the reason why the Rhino got defeated. I think he was just worn out from the entire fight of dodging, Spider-Man dodging all of his attacks, eventually just wore him out. But yeah, so this time Rhino was very smart in that he learned that Spider-Man was going to keep dodging him with his speed. So he goes after civilians to try to get Spider-Man to have to try to save them and give him the opportunity to hit Spider-Man. So eventually, the Rhino hits Spider-Man in one of these panels, and Spider-Man cannot get up after this hit. And he hits this car. I think the guy was able to get out in time, and he just completely destroys it. And the Rhino basically turns around and he comes back. It's going to try to crush Spider-Man once and for all when a police officer basically grabs and gets him out of the way. It's kind of crazy. And it does feel a little bit like propaganda for the cops. But, that's just how the story went. And after, the cop basically saves Spider-Man and gets him to dodge Rhino's attack, the Rhino basically uses the smoke from the explosion that he causes in that attack and makes his getaway, and no one basically is able to see him or get to him in time. So he basically makes his escape, knowing that he defeated Spider-Man. And there's a chance that Spider-Man's going to be out of commission for a while after that hit he took. And the fact that the Rhino hit Spider-Man the way he did, and then after that just completely destroyed that car, really just shows how much weight and how much strength and power was in those hits that Rhino was doing. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense that Spider-Man at this point was not fighting people like this and taking hits like this. So his durability wouldn't be what it is, probably today. Being that this is the first time he's fighting someone really with that type of strength level and taking hits like that. And, it was kind of like a surprise hit that got Spider-Man anyway. It wasn't like he couldn't dodge it, but, it was just a caught him by surprise. So after all this, we get to see that Spider-Man basically goes off to go get his camera, and he even makes this, remark about how, he's going to support the boys in blue and stuff. So again, it feels a little bit like propaganda, but still really good. Writing, the dialogue didn't feel cheesy or anything, it just felt like it was a little forced, but it was still good dialogue, so I really enjoyed that. Eventually, Peter goes back into civilian outfit and clothes, and he basically goes and he talks to Mary Jane, tells her that he got his pictures, and he basically tells her that he needs to go off so that he can basically go see Aunt May and basically go cash in on these pictures. And she completely understands it, and it seems like it's finally a good relationship between the two, and a very healthy relationship between someone for Peter to have a relationship with, romantically. So that's really cool. So Peter goes off and he sells the pictures of the Rhino versus Spider-Man, or Spider-Man versus the Rhino, to J. Jonah Jameson, and yeah, it's really cool. And we get to see John is in the hospital after his shock from Spider-Man, so he's basically recovering after his situation he had in the last issue, so that's really cool that they put that in there for us to see. And yeah, we get to see that Spider-Man basically goes and he talks to Dr. Connors. And Dr. Connors basically, Spider-Man goes and gives him, I guess it's a piece of the Rhino's hide, and he needs him to figure out a way to fight against the Rhino's complete durability and strength, because there's nothing that Spider-Man can really do to him physically that's putting him down. So I thought that was really cool, and shows the friendship between the two, and hopefully that comes into play in later issues, which I believe the Lizard is going to have a couple of issues coming up soon, so we'll see how that plays out. And yeah, it's really cool. So Peter basically gets his answer, I guess, and he goes to protect John Jameson as he's recovering, as the Rhino finds the place that he's staying at and recovering at, like the hospital he's at, I guess, and he's gonna go and try to capture him again, and Peter breaks through the window with a really cool panel, and they get into a fight again. Peter uses his webbing, basically try to stop the Rhino. The Rhino goes to try to attack Spider-Man with the webbing on him, which just shows the strength level that he has, and he crashes right through the building and falls a couple of stories, I think, or something, or a couple of floors. And yeah, so again, shows the durability of the Rhino as a foe for Spider-Man. And yeah, eventually Spider-Man, I guess, reveals that it's like a corrosive acid that his webbing is using, and it starts like melting his hide off of him, and he loses his helmet, like his mask. That's how much it's burning off of him, which is really cool. And once all that stuff is burned off, the majority of it, I believe I think it burned all of it off to an extent. It was almost all the way off when Spider-Man landed his punch, his haymaker, you could say, punch, and basically knocked the Rhino out. So without the Rhino's hide, he loses a lot of his durability. He's not like a superhuman in his base. He needs that hide to kind of be as strong as he is and durable as he is. So that was really cool to have a reveal like that. And Spider-Man goes off and he leaves the Rhino for the police so they can take him to jail. And Peter goes off and he talks to John, and John basically just thanks Spider-Man, saying well done, Webhead, and Spider-Man says no sweat, Colonel, and they have a respect for each other, and that makes a lot of sense because Spider-Man did save John's life in the first issue. So I really do enjoy how you have all these different relationships with Peter and Spider-Man / Spider-Man and his cast of characters in his series, and that the stuff he does matters to these people and it impacts their relationships, and his actions do have consequences / pros and cons to them, which I think is one of the best things about these original Spider-Man stories, these early Spider-Man stories, that the focus on character was just so much, and that's what made it so great. And yeah, the issue basically ends with Peter basically going off in his civilian clothes, and he goes to basically talk to Flash Thompson, Gwen Stacy, and Harry Osborn. They basically are talking to each other, and they have the same type of interaction they've been having the last few issues. And so Peter basically goes back to his house, basically goes back home to Aunt May, and Aunt May's not feeling the best, and he realizes when he goes into her medicine drawer that she's out of her medicine, and he starts getting mad at himself because he's thinking about, having his own apartment and stuff, which goes with what Aunt May and Anna were talking about, but he doesn't know about that, so he doesn't have that knowledge of them thinking that maybe he should do that as well. So he's trying to blame himself, putting it all on himself, that she doesn't have money for medicine, and that he feels kind of selfish that. And he does get a call with Mary Jane, and she seems kind of like, feeling off because I guess they were supposed to hang out with each other, and he basically says they can't hang out with her tomorrow night because of, Aunt May. He needs to find a way to get her medicine. So he feels like Mary Jane might feel off about him because of this, which she didn't really seem like that. I think he took it the wrong way. And it ends with him basically wondering why he can fight these super powerful super villains, basically his rogues gallery of villains, but he can't deal with just normal stuff and managing his life. And that's how it ends. And we get a little teaser at the end of the issue saying Nets the lizard crawls again. So I guess I was right because I didn't know the lizard was going to make a comeback in the next few issues. I didn't know it was the next issue. And yeah, we're going to be covering those stories really soon. So if you haven't already, subscribe for that. And yeah, that was the Amazing Spider-Man issue 43, Rhino on the Rampage. Again, very solid issue. Probably my favorite out of the three that we covered of the Rhino stuff / John Jameson stuff. Very solid. I really like the action in this issue. I thought it was really good, and they really made the Rhino feel like a threat, which is very important for making Spider-Man's battles feel legit and feel like he actually earns his wins. So that's very important, as well as giving us the backstory of how the Rhino became who he is. I thought that was interesting, and it gives us more depth into his character and a look into who the Rhino is and why he is the way he is. So I really enjoyed that. And the Mary Jane Peter relationship seems like it's going to be really well done in the next few issues, and hopefully that develops into something like them actually getting together. If not, he'll be with Gwen Stacy, who I believe is his first girlfriend, so that's probably going to bloom first. But we'll see how all this plays out, because right now him and Mary Jane seem very good together as a good pair. So we'll see what happens to why Peter chooses Gwen as his first girlfriend. So we'll see what happens if something happens between him and Mary Jane. It just doesn't work out or something like that. But we'll see, and we'll see, why him and Gwen basically worked out. first. But that's going to be all, guys. Yeah, like I said, if you're new to the channel, subscribe as we cover the Amazing Spider-Man series. We're at 43 issues so far. We'll be covering issues 44, 45, and maybe 46 in the next few days, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. And yeah, until next video, guys, God bless you. Until next lesson, keep on reading those comics.